we're continuing with this one, 6 months to change the world. I bookmarked where we got yesterday. So basically what we are doing today is we are looking to understand more how the diet of a mother affects the outcome of the fetus. So let's go. Okay, we stopped where we were talking about glycemic index and insulin resistance, and let me read back at least one paragraph so that we can get back the moncho and understand where we were. So have you considered what happens when insulin, to safeguard against high levels of glucose in the blood, activates fat production and causes excess weight? But what happens if a diet too high in sugars persists and becomes a daily occurrence? After some times, varying from person to person and according to the amounts of sugars consumed, the phenomenon arises that is truly disastrous for the organism: insulin resistance. Remember the term, it will become crucial as the term glycemic index. How does insulin resistance happen? The short answer: too many fast carbohydrates, too little insulin. Gradually, the body cells responsible for mopping up excess glucose start to be affected by the toxicity of the sugar. Battered and exhausted, unable to do their job, these cells end up resisting the orders received from insulin. To compensate for the lack of for that resistance and ensure that your survival, the pancreas must therefore secrete a little more insulin to obtain the same result. Over time, the resistance increases. This leads to two consequences. As we have already seen, more insulin equals more weight gain. If the consumption of sugars continues and is not corrected, it becomes addictive. Extra weight quickly. The line is bad, but better, much better. Anyway, let's continue. Bad light or not, we continue. Anyway, so extra weight quickly becomes obesity. During all this, the strength or weakness of a person's pancreas becomes a factor. Over time, increased and prolonged exertion by the pancreas can end up wearing out the organ, the pancreas. If the pancreas is strong and healthy, obesity will take hold and can even worsen, but this will not necessarily lead to diabetes. If, however, the pancreas is vulnerable and fragile, it ends up becoming exhausted and gives up trying to control blood sugar. When this occurs, obesity is associated with diabetes. Remember yesterday we said about diabesity. Diabesity. But why does this difference exist between one pancreas and another? Why are there some strong while some are fragile and vulnerable? If you're already asking yourself this question, I have succeeded in one of my goals. I am thrilled to be able to give you an answer. The answer will show that through your dietary choices, you and you alone have the power to determine whether your child will have a strong pancreas or a fragile one. Get it? Get it? What you eat determines the outcome of your fetus. So it doesn't matter if you're eating 1 month in pregnancy or 6 months in pregnancy, it affects the outcome of your fetus. Also, for men watching this and you are looking forward to raising or having a family, be cautious of what your wife is eating during pregnancy. Honest. I know we have cravings. I know we feel like we want to eat all the sugar in the world. We want to eat stones and do what. I'm telling you, it's very important that you make sure if you're pregnant, you're eating right. And if your wife or your partner is pregnant, they are eating the right food, because it determines the outcome of your child. Yep. And also I have the book that says that the genetics and everything of a fetus, most things, the brain and all that, is determined by the man. So we'll be getting to that part. So if you are male, we'll be getting to you. Okay, so getting back to the pregnant woman who has 6 months to change the world. Only a certain number of this word, obstetricians obstetricians and diabetologists who focus on gestational diabetes are fully aware of the impact of the maternal diet on the development of the fetal pancreas and subsequently vulnerability of this pancreas. Obviously, then pregnant women are not aware of this fact. If only very few obstetricians and diabetologists, these are people who deal with pregnancy and also those who deal with diabetes, very few of them know that the mother's diet affects the outcome of the fetal pancreas as well as the child's pancreas. So if very few specialists know, what about the pregnant mothers? And what about nutritionists who are advising pregnant people out here? Anywho, like all of us, pregnant women are bombarded by flashy, persuasive ads that tell them that their nutritional value, there is nutritional value in biscuits that are actually more than 70% ultra fast carbohydrates. And it's true. And even like during pregnancy and after pregnancy, we are convinced, very much convinced, that we need to eat sugar and to eat what, because these foods are gonna be providing us with high energy or high carbohydrates that we need, and then we are convinced to take several different types of cookies that have either fenugreek or fennel. And cookies are not bad. I also ate cookies, but it depends with the amount that you're consuming as well as how it's baked. If it's home baked, it's different from store-bought. What's the problem with biscuits and cookies and all these things? It's that they have, say with me, they have highly processed sugars or highly refined sugars. Doesn't matter how you call it. So let me read that last sentence again. Like all of us, pregnant women are bombarded by flashy, persuasive ads that tell them that there is nutritional value in biscuits that are actually more than 70% ultra-fast carbohydrates. It took decades for us to succeed in limiting advertising on alcohol and tobacco. Obstetricians have been able to convince their pregnant patients on the importance of avoiding these products. The battle we face now is to do the same with white sugar. And especially with white flour, which is actually more aggressive for the pancreas than white sugar. And reading this book is so hard because I'm a mother, I have 2 children, and convincing them not to take biscuits from the supermarket aisle is a tough battle. But what we are doing nowadays, we are not taking them to the supermarket. So when we are shopping, we shop alone. We only take them to the food market, I know they are all food markets. Like we take them to the open market. Yes, the open market where we can buy fruits and sugarcane juice and all the other good stuff. The more natural food other than going to buy processed foods. So to get there, we look more closely at the glycemic index. Remember we mentioned the glycemic index. So the glycemic index is a tool that allows us to rate the invasive power of foods containing carbohydrates. It's not that hard. It's just comparing what will happen when you take a cookie as opposed to what will happen when you take arrowroot, as opposed to what will happen when you take pure glucose. You just compare. It's an index. It's a comparison. It's comparable to gauging how fast a car can go from 0 to 60. The fastest carbohydrate is the ultra-processed concentrated glucose in your blood. That is the fastest, the one that is already in everything to that one, like the one that is already in your blood. So white sugar or sucrose is 70, which is a very high number. I love reading and I will keep on reading, but let me tell you something. It is hard to eliminate these products, and this is coming from a nutritionist. I'm a nutritionist, but it is hard to eliminate white sugar. It is hard to eliminate white flour. For ugali and for chapati, for naan, whatever it is that you call them, it is hard. So for us, one thing we've done is we make, for tea, we make spicy tea. We don't add sugar. I'm hoping to stop buying sugar completely in this house. Like right now, we are not taking sugar, like all of us, which is good. The kids are taking porridge, and the adults are taking black tea, sugarless black tea, or black herbal tea. It's just like cloves and cinnamon and all that. So what we hope to do is, by the end of this month, like when we are doing the next shopping, we won't buy any sugar. That is, we'll eliminate it from the house, like we have eliminated soda and bread. And hopefully in a few months we'll completely be sugar free, like no craving for sugar from the kids and from us. I know it's hard, but there are substitute. There's you can substitute it with, you can substitute sugar with what do we call it, honey and stevia. I don't know why that took me so long to remember. You can substitute sugar with honey and stevia. Yeah, so it's possible to do something about sugar consumption in your house. Higher. Now, we have talked about white sugar. All-purpose flour, which you find in bread or biscuits, is at 80%. It's not 80%, the index is 80. 80 is really high. Now let's return to what happens to those caught in the sugar insulin weight gain cycle. Because it's a, you see why people with excess weight is don't lose it as easily as those who have just gained a little weight over a short period of time, is because those who have excess weight, they have gained that weight over a long period, and so they have gotten into the cycle. You have insulin resistance, that leads to weight gain, that leads to more craving for sugar, insulin resistant, more sugar, like that. So it's a cycle, it's a closed loop. So with a diet that puts too many sugars in the body, other related phenomena start to appear. First, persistently high levels of sugar in the blood and in all organs that it feeds creates oxidative stress. An unmanageable amount of free radicals circulating in the blood. Yeah, these waste products are the result of glycation. What is glycation? Oh, it's explained, sorry. Glycation is the binding of a sugar molecule to a protein. They are responsible for aging of delicate tissue, the heart, the kidneys, and the skin on the face. Have you ever noticed people who are sugar-free have very nice skin? Like really, really nice skin. I'm hoping to get there. Nice skin, nice hair, and all the goodness of being on a sugar-free diet. I've been told to be sugar-free for so long. Like, my mother has been on my case. My brothers have been on my case. Now, because I'm sick, it's why I'm listening. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous from a nutritionist point of view that it has brought me to the point of being sick to stop using sugar. And it's working. It's hard, but it's working. Along my life, I also learned to bake. So like once a week we bake, and baking is good. It's a good skill to have, but the problem is those confectionery goods, those baked goods, we consume them in like 2 days, and it's a lot of goods. Like even when I substitute sugar with baobab and cinnamon, I still feel like baking consumes a lot of sugar and fat. So unfortunately, I have to give up on my baking. Let's continue reading. 30 minutes is not as much as I thought. So these products, they are responsible for the aging of the delicate tissue, the heart, the kidneys, and the skin of the face. Being overweight also results in adipose cells growing in size, which alters their functioning. This leads to production of cytokines, which are the vectors for harmful inflammation of the organism. Finally, insulin exhausts the kidneys, you didn't know that, which causes less effective elimination of salt and uric acid. So, in a way, sugar causes gout. Yeah, sugar causes gout. So, too much salt in the blood causes water retention and hypertension, and also too much uric acid, which can lead to kidney stones and gout. So, the engine that drives the weight crisis, a critical point. What it means for a food to be refined and industrially processed. We've been talking a lot about foods that are refined or processed. Since industrially processed foods are here to stay and are even likely to spread, it is important to understand exactly what the term means and what they refer to. This knowledge will be especially useful if you are pregnant or eating for two. Which foods are the ones that are altered and made toxic by the industrial process? From the vast selection of foods available, how do you choose those that are least processed? As in our imaginary situation with the packets of biscuits, the following situation will lead to another eureka moment. Once you understand it, it will change your entire outlook and permanently alter your approach to food. The corn process, from the comb to the cornflakes. Ugh. Imagine you're walking through a cornfield and you pick off an ear of corn. Later, you grind it and eat it right off the cob. In this fresh and natural form, a grilled cob of corn has a low glycemic index. That's because its strong, dense vegetal texture demands that the body goes through a long, exhausting process to digest and break down the fibrous material. The sugars extracted from the chewed and digested grains arrive in the blood gradually, raising the blood sugar more moderately. Insulin secretion, therefore, remains weak. This digestive journey that starts in the mouth and ends up in the bloodstream can be evaluated on the glycemic index. This index goes from 0 to 100, 0 being the level of water, which has no calories whatsoever, to 100 being pure glucose in your blood. On the scale that goes to 100, the glycemic index of grilled corn is 36, which is still good. Based on the overall parameters, that's a relatively low rating. Now, imagine that instead of consuming this freshly picked, nicely grilled ear of corn, a manufacturer decides to package it and sell it in the form of a can of kernels. The manufacturer shells the corn and immerses it in a liquid solution. So the can sits on a shelf waiting to be sold. The kernels soften as they soak. This softening of the grain's flesh and skin constitutes the equivalent of predigestion. Your body no longer has to do the work, which makes it that much quicker to digest and absorb the corn's sugar. The sugars therefore arrive faster and in greater number, causing a sharper rise in blood sugar. Like if you eat a can of kernel, it takes a shorter time for it to be digested. Hi, notorious traveler. It's been a while. Thank you for being here. I have diverted my lives to more contextual. We are reading a few nutrition books as a way to remain accountable to myself and to keep a record of the books I'm reading through this year. This is my second book that I'm reading. This is a nutritional one, but I have so many. I have we bought a lot of books over the holiday because they were on sale. So we'll be reading as many as we can. So this one is about how you can change the life of your unborn child within 6 months in the 6 months of pregnancy. Oh, that is such a good photo. I wish I could screenshot that. Anywho, let's continue reading. So let me read back this paragraph. So when the maize is shelled and soaked in a solution in a can, the same corn, wait, where were we? Oh, yes. Now, imagine that instead of consuming this freshly picked, nicely grilled ear of corn, a manufacturer decides to package it and sell it in the form of a can of kernels. The manufacturer shells the corn and immerses it in a liquid solution. As the can sits on a shelf waiting to be sold, the kernels soften as they soak. This softening of the grain's flesh and skin constitutes the equivalent of predigestion. Your body no longer has to do the work, which means which makes it much quicker to digest and absorb the corn sugars. The sugars therefore arrive faster in greater number, causing a sharper rise in blood sugar and more secretion of insulin as a response. When it is shelled and soaked in a solution in a can, the same corn we picked from the field becomes dangerous and causes weight gain. In this form, the glycemic index of the grain rises from 36 to 50. We are going high. Now, let's take a scenario a little further. Another manufacturer takes the grains of corn and decides to make flour from them. The grains are dehydrated, they are dried, and very finely ground. They end up in a beige powder form, which can be used for baking or in sauces. This additional processing further erodes the corn's vegetal structure and reduces the effort necessary for digestion. In the mouth, the stomach, and in the small intestine where the food enters the blood in the form of glucose, digestion and absorption time is reduced, but yet again, it leads to an even larger eruption of glucose. Blood sugar jumps even more drastically, forcing the pancreas to increase its production of insulin even further. When rendered as flour in this form, the glycemic index of corn climbs even higher than before. It reaches close to 70, which is the glycemic index of white sugar. I want to show you why baked goods are really a health, how can I say this? They are problematic to your health. So the final scenario, a third manufacturer takes this flour and makes it into a paste, which is then milled until it's a small fraction of an inch thick, like this. The ultra fine paste is then cooked until it becomes rigid. Finally, it is broken up in thin pieces, we all know, under a common name, cornflakes. And we love them. Children love them for breakfast. When this final transformation is finished, every trace of the original plant has vanished. Every trace, everything that was maize has vanished from a cornflake. Actually, the other day, I was telling my husband it is better to eat popped corn than ugali in terms of nutritional content. But hey, it is up to for debate, isn't it? Yeah. Like, think about it. Eating popcorns is better than eating ugali in terms of the nutritional value. Let me leave it at that. When this final transformation is finished, every trace of the original plant has vanished. The sacrifice is total. A nutritional void remains. When we consume cornflakes, our digestive tract has almost no work to do. The trajectory from the mouth to the blood becomes virtual toboggan ride, like it's like shua, with no friction along the way. With the arrival of these sugars in the blood, the pancreas secretes almost the largest dose of insulin possible for it to be put in the cell. What we see when we look at cornflakes, however, is merely another food product, fun, crunchy, with a charming orange color that's pleasant for kids and reassuring for parents. We feel like they are eating something because it's orange. They are not. And yet, the glycemic index of corn, now processed to the hilt and transmuted into cornflakes, has reached a new peak. Between 85 and 92, depending on the country in which it's manufactured. Remember, we started with a glycemic index of 36 for corn in its most natural form, when it is still in the farmer's hands. We saw this index rise with each step of manufacturing to 50 when it was canned, 70 when it was made into flour, and as high as 90 when it is turned into cornflakes. I chose the example of corn because it's a shocking one, and because you and all consumers should be aware of the effects of the industrial processing of foods. The same process is involved in almost 70% of the food we eat. 70%. The consequences are serious enough that we should be aware of them at the very least. Yeah? I'm certain that this chain of processing is an integral part of the spectacular explosion in weight problems, obesity, and diabetes around the world. The birth and advancement of this twofold epidemic are directly correlated to the development of industrialization of highly processed foods. Can you believe it? But the impact of food processing alone does not fully explain the epidemic. A healthy adult's pancreas may be able to tolerate such an aggressive diet. The same isn't true of the pancreas of a developing fetus. Facing an environment saturated in sugar, this small pancreas will experience faster and more intense growth than usual. The child will be born bigger and its pancreas will be bigger as well, having been forced to work too hard and too soon. This child will be vulnerable to weight problems and diabetes, and the vulnerability will persist throughout its life. Let's say the child is female and let's follow her father. We may get to the point where this girl has grown up, likely to be overweight, and she gets pregnant. During her pregnancy, she will transmit the same pancreatic vulnerability to her fetus. If the fetus faces the nutrition environment as overwhelmed by carbohydrates and processed food as its mother's, when she was in the womb so long ago, the child will be born with vulnerability that has only been compounded by the repetition of this cycle. The idea here is that the invasion of processed carbohydrates, their harmful effects on the development of the fetal pancreas are transmitted and amplified with this new generation. This dynamo effect with this weakening of the pancreas makes its victims more prone to weight gain and diabetes. The proliferation of processed carbohydrates foods has thrown us into a vicious transgenerational cycle that is the cause of the meteoric rise in weight problems. Like, it's big. But here's another shocking thing. It's very easy to stop this escalation. Can you believe it? Yeah. During 2 crucial months when the pancreas of the fetus is appearing and developing, just consume as many natural foods as possible and as few overly processed carbohydrates as possible. That is, follow me as we head down the path of learning how. The appearance and development of the pancreas in the embryo and the fetus. This project is concerned with your pregnancy and the pancreas of the child in your womb. Therefore, it is worth knowing that this organ appears during the pregnancy and develops within your baby's abdomen, which is inside your own abdomen. The appearance and development of the embryo's pancreas, followed by that of the fetus, is orchestrated and regulated by the human genetic code. It all starts in the meeting of an ovum from the mother and sperm from the father. These two gametes have prepared for their union. They have each shared half of their chromosomes so that their merging creates a complete new cell. We all know how fertilization of an egg occurs. This union is the moment of fertilization that the result is an egg. An egg. We are reading a book. Immediately after fertilization, the egg starts dividing rapidly at a rate of about 1 division every 10 hours. First, it divides into 2, then 4, then 8. By the end of the third day, the zygote comprises 16 small cells. They are called morula, like a marula, like morula. At this stage, these cells are called stem cells, since they are undifferentiated and are still capable of any necessary cell lineage. From this point on, that is from day 3, bridges start to form between the cells so that their development is coherent. They develop together. At day 4 or 5, we get to the blastula stage, which marks the beginning of cell differentiation. Like from day 1 of egg fertilization to day 5, the cells are the same. That's why they are called stem cells. They are not differentiated. There's no brain cell and abdominal cell or skin cell. They are all the same. So, on day 6, the developing eggs makes a nest in the lining of the uterus. On day 7, it forms an inner cell mass. This has 2 layers consisting of different cell types. An external part, which forms the skin, nails, tooth, enamel, and nervous tissue, and an internal part, which forms the digestive and respiratory organs. By day 18, the embryo measures 1 millimeter. It's still very small, like this. Like that's almost 3 weeks. By day 22, it is 2 millimeters. By day 26, it's 4 millimeters. It's still really small. By the end of the first month, it's 6 millimeters, which is about the size of a small pea. It's still really small. During the second month, the embryo starts to take shape externally and position itself and positions its internal organs. By the 60th day, that's 2 months, the embryo measures about 3 centimeters, still very small, the equivalent of a grape or small nut. Now, let's focus on the development of the pancreas. By day 19, 2 small bands appear on the wall of the intestines. First, the dorsal band, and 3 days later, the ventral band. By the 5th week, these 2 bands start to migrate so they can meet and merge in the 6th week, that's 2 months. 99% of the developing cells in the pancreas to be will eventually play a role in the organ's endocrine function and will produce digestive enzymes. The remaining 1% will be involved in the endocrine function only, with half of them specializing in insulin secretion. In case you don't know what the endocrine system is, endocrine system is the one that secretes or regulates the secretion of hormones. We have different systems in the body: immune system, digestive system. A system is just a connection of different organs that are doing a specific role. So the endocrine specifically regulates hormone production. So when it says here that some of the cells are concerned specifically with the release of digestive enzymes and some with the endocrine system, that think of it this way: the body needs enzymes and hormones for it to function properly. From sleeping to eating, all these things are regulated by enzymes and hormones. So the endocrine system controls hormones, and those hormones also trigger the production of enzymes. It's a lot. So for insulin to be released, for example, you need a particular enzyme that will trigger the release of insulin from the pancreas. Biology is hard, but the thing to understand is the pancreas is also highly related to the endocrine system that controls production of hormones. Anywho, during the 4th and 5th month, the cells that have so far been undifferentiated will come together in little isets called Langerhans. Over these 60 days, the Langerhans disseminate and acquire a capacity to secrete insulin. That's 2 months of pregnancy. And that's the way it's been for over 200,000 years. The sugars the mother consumes are digested and then broken down so that they end up in the blood in the form of glucose. Glucose is a small molecule, so it easily passes through the placenta, transferring from the mother's blood to that of the fetus. But maternal insulin is too big to pass through the same way. This means the fetus has to produce its own insulin. If the mother consumes products that are high in sugars, her blood sugar levels will rise. The fetal pancreas will therefore be required to transform this glucose into fat. Imagine, in the fetus, into fat. This leads to weight gain that is proportional to the sugar consumption and to increased infant birth weight. Like, if you eat too much sugar when you're pregnant, you directly affect your fetus, and so the fetus becomes fat or heavier because it has no way of converting the sugar into anything else, because its insulin is so small and it requires a lot of insulin to convert sugar into to anything else. So you get to have a heavy baby, and that's why somehow most overweight people get really big babies and have to undergo cesarean section. Like, there's a correlation. I don't know how you don't see it. There's a correlation. There's a way in which a pregnant mother will basically eat something that is high in sugar. If it's not moderated, they might lead to the baby becoming a heavy baby, or I don't know whether we can call a baby overweight, we just say heavy or light, so, or small or big. So, and that's a research that was done on gestational diabetes, the need for the common ground by Lancet. So by the 5th month, the dye is cast. The cells within the Langerhans islets that are responsible for insulin secretion become functional. That's the 5th month. Their development and their eventual strength or weakness depends on the levels of glucose in the maternal blood that reaches the fetus and pancreas. Finally, by the 6th to the 9th month, the volume of the insulin secreting cells will increase as well as their insulin production. So to summarize, during the first 2 months of cellular proliferation phase, the beta cells of the pancreas have more power to multiply than ever, and it's during these 2 months that the maternal nutrition must be regulated. And this happens from, we've said, from the 2nd month of pregnancy to around the 5th month of pregnancy. So end of the first trimester to the end of first trimester to. So in conclusion, this chapter was devoted to the pancreas, which is at the center of the weight and diabetes crisis. This organ should no longer be considered just another part of anatomy. Getting that idea across is one smaller goal that's part of the greater mission of this book. It's a mission based on hope, just hope. By reading on and carefully, you'll become a part of that mission and that hope. As we move through these chapters, you will see that our shared success would equal a bright future. The mission is essentially to protect your child from a vulnerability that has already entangled 2 billion individuals in weight problems and trapped 500 million in diabetes. But our related mission is to help you protect yourself by making you aware of the threefold problem with the dietary model today. Number 1, food has become merchandised, subject to certain market rules, increasing productivity, lowering cost, and maximizing the incentive to consume. There's an incentive to consume processed foods. Yeah. Food products have become addictive, their carbohydrates have become concentrated, and their naturally occurring fibers have been removed. As they languish in their industrial concocted nectar, they lose their status as a natural food. The result is that they end up being treated by the reward centers of your brain in the same way as a hard drug, especially sugar. Sugar is somehow recognized as a hard drug in your brain. Foods that are so rich in these concentrated sugars surpass the functions of the pancreas, an organ designed at a time when these foods didn't exist. 2,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago. Above all, though, there is one particular moment when the conflict between our ancient pancreas and the sugars of today is more acute and has the most drastic consequences. This is the moment when the pancreas starts to form in the fetus's abdomen, itself within the mother's abdomen. If maternal nutrition is balanced and moderate in terms of invasive sugars, and during this crucial period of fetal development, fetal pancreas will develop as it should according to the genetic conditions of our species. That means the pancreas stands a good chance of being robust enough to deal with these foods. If, however, the fetal pancreas appears in an environment filled with carbohydrates and is permeated with maternal blood that often has high levels of glucose, this pancreas will have got off to a bad start, like the fetal pancreas. Thank you. It will be impaired. This pancreas will have to will have a continuing tendency for insulin hypersecretion, a higher birth weight than average, a predisposition to insulin resistance, and a propensity for obesity and diabetes. So join me on a journey to our roots, Our aim is to understand the history of our species, to learn that what our genes actually want us to eat, and to appreciate the risks we take if we ignore these demands. That is chapter 5 of this book. It's a very, very interesting chapter. We started it yesterday. If you've not seen, or if you're interested and you have not watched yesterday's video, you can go ahead and watch it. It's the engine that drives the weight crisis, which is the insulin and the pancreas. Insulin is an enzyme that is produced by the pancreas. So when it's produced by the pancreas, it acts on sugars or glucose and takes them where they ought to be. That is either to the brain, to the muscles, whichever muscle, any muscle literally. And if those two are not taking the glucose is converted until it is stored in fat and deposited in adipose tissues, because adipose tissues can take an infinite amount of fat without any problem developing. Like, you can always gain weight if you don't watch your diet, but when you watch your diet, you can always lose weight. It's not a hard fact, but it is very difficult. And also reading this book and understanding that mothers play such a big role in the health outcomes of their, and cornered, because whenever I see a pregnant mother snacking on something that I know is not very healthy or that will spike their blood sugar, I'm conflicted. Should I tell them not to eat it? Should I just let them eat it because I know pregnancy hunger is really hard? What should I do? But I think I do what I can, which is educate people that the problem with weight, the number one problem that we have to address is sugar. It's sugar. It's not fat. It has never been fat. That was a misdirection, a very well construed misdirection that makes us look at fat and cholesterol and all that. But the main problem, really the only problem, is the sugar we consume in our food. So if you know a pregnant person, if you know a mother-to-be and all that, tell them to watch out for what they eat. If you have a craving, if you can, drink water. That water, you can put anything. I always talk about infused water. You can put herbs, you can put anything that you want to put in the water, because that way it will be more nutritious in your body and it will most likely handle the hunger pangs. Okay, let's get to chapter 6. It has very interesting chapters. Very thought-provoking, but they also make me feel so bad. But the good thing, even if you never manage to do this thing during pregnancy, you can still correct them right where you are. You can reduce your sugar consumption. It has 9 chapters. It was like a project to just help pregnant women understand that they only have 6 months to change the whole outcome of a whole individual, and in so being, change the world. First chapter was introducing the project. The second, understanding the enemy, excess weight, obesity, and diabetes. Then we started looking at each one of those. Excess weight, obesity, and diabetes, the how and why, and the sugars and the lobbies that promote them. That chapter 4 was tough. Like understanding that sugar is being pushed intentionally into the market. Then we finished chapter 5, which is the engine that drives the weight crisis and insulin, the insulin and the pancreas. Then we look at the genetics of human nutrition, then epigenetics, the scientific evidence, and your dairy diets. They're all interesting. I feel like I should go to epigenetics because it's something that people always come back to. And it's true because we have even seen it in this chapter. What I eat or what I ate when I was pregnant directly affects the outcome of my children. And then, because I've already exposed my children's pancreas to my way of eating, when they are born, what I feed them also affects their health outcomes. For example, if my household, like if we continued having the same high sugar products, processed things in my house when my son was young, he would have developed a craving for sugar. We were at a place where we drank a lot of carbonated drinks. Carbonated drinks is soda. We ate a lot of cakes, cookies, biscuits. We ate a lot. So when I started reducing them, one thing I did is learn how to bake my own things. So we made banana bread, we made chocolate cake, all those things, because then I would control the sugar I added. But then it is still not enough because we were over consuming whatever baked good I made. One, it was very sweet, and also we needed to finish it so I can bake the next thing. But anyway, we are now more serious about regulating the food we eat in our house and replacing those things with much healthier options, carbohydrates, tubers like arrowroots, sweet potatoes. We are trying cassava. We are really trying to understand how to cook cassava in the best of ways. We are doing more fruits and vegetables, carrots, beetroot, juices, fruits, different nuts and seeds for protein, so that we don't have to over rely on some particular thing for our carbohydrates and proteins. Let's get to chapter 6, the genetics of human nutrition. What do your genes tell us about your diet and the functioning of your pancreas? What do they tell us? Anyway, the full response is highly technical. So to make it clear as possible, let's start by looking at what a species is exactly and how a species identity is rooted in its genes. Each species is determined by a genetic code that differentiates it from other species. Our own genetic code differentiates us from other living beings by giving us the faculty of being able to create culture and adapt to most situations we encounter. This code is the basic foundation of our humanity. For real. The importance of the genetic code is not limited to the high-level fields of scientific study. The code is a decisive element in how we manage our lives and in how we can avoid disease, in what we strive for and what satisfies us. It seems almost ludicrous, ludicrous. The children are back home and they are crying their heads out. It seems almost ludicrous today, but for a very long time, humanity believed that all species on Earth were created at the same time. Yeah. But what we currently know about the history of all that have ever lived on Earth falls under a single name: evolution. Then, the then heretical theory was developed under difficult circumstances by Charles Darwin and published in 1859. The theory asserted that each species succeeded a previous one and that species have been evolving from the time the first virus came into being until the appearance of human being. Like we've just evolved. Specifically, each species follows from an older one, which it has replaced or broken off from. The new species is fully autonomous, and the separation is complete when its members can no longer reproduce with members of the same species. No one knows the meaning of evolution, the ultimate goal. But we do know that evolution advances by increasing complexity. Why does one species come after another? In order to be more successfully adapt to the environment, to survive and to continue the basic projects, which surpasses scientific understanding and pushes life towards an uncommon destination. And for those who want further details, evolution progresses through errors in the transmission of an individual's DNA to its offspring. Poorly transmitted copies generate what are commonly known as genetic mutations, which are normally sent and distributed throughout the entire population. Like there's always a genetic mutation. Some are good, some are not so good. If some external events occur and that the species is not adapted to, members of with the high mutations may have better chances of surviving. These individuals therefore also end up being more likely to reproduce thereby passing on the mutations to their descendants. Eventually, a family line will break off from the rest of the original species, creating a new species, like a stronger species. This new species genetic code, which is written into the DNA of each of its members, starts with the following information. This is what your genetics code says. Here is what sets you apart from members of another species. Here is what you look like. Your eyes will be such and such shape and color. You will have lungs or gills. You will have skin or scale or feathers, etc. It also says, here is how your body works, how your heart beats, how you breathe, how you control your body temperature, and how thousands of other functions work, with or without your knowledge. Like, how does your heart beat? How is my breathing being controlled right now? How is digestion happening and absorption in my stomach? How is healing happening when I'm relaxing or sleeping? How is my hair growing? How are my eyes blinking? Blinking I can control, but not every time. Some functions we know they are happening. Most functions we don't know when they are happening. Continuing. It also says, and that's how we come into the world, in an egg, in a kangaroo's pouch or another mammal's womb. And an embryo's development takes place according to a very precise and carefully orchestrated process. One element turns out to be fundamental in the planning of this development. All the animals in the world, including humanids, which includes us, living according to the directives contained in that code of their species. For social animals, the genetic code tells the species that living in groups is ideal. We always live in groups. It is so hard to live alone, like alone. As some people do, there are people who like to live in the mountains, but I think it's only for a period of time. After some time, they come back. Anyway, the instructions are species specific. Gibbons and wild geese are monogamous. They only mate with one person for life. Baboons live in harems. Wolves live in packs. Pandas are solitary. Even the number of individuals in a group or society is anticipated in the genetic code. Humankind is not different from being bound to this powerful system, which makes us what we are, and not one of the countless pre-human and human species that have preceded us. Like, we are very different from our predecessors. This brings us to two issues that concern us here: human pregnancy, yours in particular, and the formation of the human pancreas, such as that of your unborn child. For the process of pregnancy, everything is intricately mapped out. It is akin to a musical score that has been read and interpreted for thousands of millions of years. Let me tell you something. Science is the reason I somehow doubt the Bible. Yeah, because that is one story that somehow is hard to believe. That we have only existed for approximately 8,000 to 10,000 years. Like, how we have really grown and developed and changed. Diseases have come and gone. I also wonder whether diseases like diabetes were there in the past, like in the recorded past in the Bible. I wonder if it's all a systemic lie. Anyway, let's stick to the science, because this one at least we know for sure, and there are not so many contradictions to the truth. Like, yes, you might be misdirected from the truth, but the truth remains. And the truth is that our pancreas produces insulin, and insulin, if it's in excess, it will lead to weight gain. And when you stop taking sugars, you can lose weight. That's a truth, I would say. And also, I kind of feel even like there's no way we have existed for 800 years. There's so many things that could not have just been in the last 800 years. They required so many years before for them to exist in the way they are. Anyway, back to the book. The formation of the pancreas is like a single bar on the musical note. That means that the pregnancy process of a Cro-Magnon woman 40,000 years ago, so listen, that's 40,000 years ago, was identical in every way to that of a woman today. Yani the process, like how the egg is fertilized and all that, it's the same. Each week in the pregnancy brings change to the embryo and then to the fetus, all leading to birth, whether it's natural or CS, all of it. Thus, the role and the functions of the pancreas too were laid out at our origin some 200,000 years ago and remain the same today. I think the only thing that has changed is how it's the nature, it's the environment around us, but our genetic coding has not changed as much. So that means that as the pancreas of your unborn child develops, it will follow exactly the same blueprint as the pancreas of an infant, of a caveman, years and years ago. Okay? So I'm sharing this to help you see that the pancreas, which is almost the only agent we have for controlling sugar and fat storage, is not at all adapted to how we eat today. The pancreas is not an organ exclusive to humans. It is found in all wild animals, like all of them. These animals, of course, do not consume refined sugars, just humans. And before civilization began, we did not. The idea here is easy to summarize. The blueprint for how an animal or human pancreas functions does not take into the account the sugars we consume today, and especially not in the quantities we consume them. That's just it. Like, the pancreas has not changed. Like, think of it this way. Like those people who lived, say, like, I don't know, 1,000 years ago, their pancreas is the same as ours today. It hasn't changed. The only thing that has changed, like if you take photos of people from olden age, even the wealthy ones and the ones who are now, is just our shape. Our shape nowadays, some rich and wealthy people are very broad. They are very broad like this. They are broad. But those in the past, they were lean. They were lean and well-toned and all that. Probably because they didn't take as much processed sugars as we are doing. So here is the problem. The tension between our ancient pancreas and the modern diet is at its height, and it's most dangerous. When this organ first appears, by carefully selecting the right foods to consume during your pregnancy, you hold the power to control the tension. But if you fail to do so, you make the violent collision between ancient and modern that much more damaging. We know that genetics governs our physiology, and that our physiology is adapted to a certain type of diet. And this leads us to the urgency of protecting the pancreas at the moment when it is formed in the mother's womb. So let's pause now and look at another example of a relation between genetics and the cultural environment. Breast milk from mammals varies according to species. Donkey, cow, human, monkey milk are all different. When the baby's bottle started to compete with the mother's breast, the shift promoted a great deal of discussion. Pediatricians began offering their opinions on the issue. Scientists in the United States and in Europe had differing views on the composition of milk, especially regarding the protein content, which was given much more importance by Americans than Europeans. But it did not go unnoticed. In France, for example, that Americans' GIs abroad were a good 10 centimeters taller than the French. Okay, after decades of debating, it became clear that the best milk for human infants was, in fact, mother's milk. In response to the consensus, manufacturers created infant formula. I can't believe it. That's what they got from after they agreed. Now they created infant formula by replicating the elements found in breast milk. And that matter was settled. Like it never came up again. But we know we cannot replicate breast milk because breast milk is regulated by the mother's body, like its composition. But when you think of infant formula, it's the same composition day in, day out. So there's maybe if the child is sick and the mother senses it because there's that maternal connection, the milk might have more antibodies than before, like than even an hour before. But that infant formula does not in any way put that into account. If anything, if your child gets sick to a point that now you see the symptoms, you're advised to go and buy something different for them, which introduces foreign things in their body, which really have a devastating effect on them. Anyway, this example shows that if a few grams of proteins more or less in the infant's milk can make such an impressive difference, creating a taller generation of Americans, for instance, then there's clearly such a thing as an ideal human diet. And it's crucial for you to remember this point during the last 6 months of your pregnancy, especially during the 4th and 5th month, which are most crucial. When we were looking at the previous chapter, we saw that is when the cells of the pancreas are most active, like the 4th and 5th month of the fetus development. Anywho, we go to another small subtitle, the Great Lift, Harmonization, like humanoids, not humanoids, well, humanoids or something. I considered skipping this section when I was writing the book. However, I just couldn't resist the temptation to share with you what sometimes considered the greatest story ever told. Besides, it helps to build my case. It starts with a big question. How did we become human beings? The action begins in Africa almost 8 million years ago. In the middle of the continent, near the equator, sits the equatorial forest with dense and lush vegetation. Among the species of primates coexists, there is a great ape whose descendants would eventually split into 2 species, chimpanzees and humans. For the time being, however, the great ape remains safe from predators and aware of its illustrious future progeny. It has a vegetarian diet, mainly consisting of fruits and nuts. This quiet world is riven into when a cataclysmic earthquake descends upon Africa like a sword. It creates what is now known as the Great Lift. The continent is severed into 2 large masses. The eastern part stays in place, the western part collapses. The forest too is split, separating into a lower part and the upper part. Winds bring clouds and moisture that provide water to the lower part, but the steep elevation of the upper part cuts it off from rain. To the west and to the south, the forest remains hydrated and dense vegetation, like we are looking at Africa as a continent, north and south. So the north doesn't receive as much rain, the south receives enough rain, but the east and the west, they are just the same. To the east and to the north, however, drought sets in, vegetation withers, and the region becomes savanna. Monkeys living in the forested part remain unchanged, but those that live in the savanna, deprived of their trees and fruits, find themselves on the ground, in the midst of the tall ground to hide the horizon from sight. The only survivors among the newcomers to the hostile savanna are those that carry latent mutations, allowing them to adapt to these conditions. This includes those who can eat animal flesh, live in a pack to defend themselves from predators, hunt, and are equipped with a pelvis that allows them to stand upright and see above the tall grasses. This upright position, which was necessary for survival in that environment, was also the key to the later emergence of Homo sapiens. The head ended up balanced on the first vertebrae of the neck. It's no longer needed to be held in the vertical position by powerful muscles that surrounded the base of the skull. The skull therefore became able to shift towards the rear, which opened up the space for the development of the brain. Liberated hands were able to be used as instruments for exploring, for fine motor skills could develop. Hands and brain started working together until they were eventually capable of launching a gripped stone so that it could strike a prey or predator. The monkeys that remained in the lower forest evolved very gradually into chimpanzees. Almost 7 million million years ago on the savannah, however, the first pre-humanoid species was born, starting with the legendary pithecanthrope. The baton was then passed from species to species. Evolution, by the way of the Neanderthals, through 2 or 3 other species until we arrived on the scene. During this development, the evolving brain went from having several thousand million neurons to a volume of around 100 centimeters cubed to our 14 billion neurons in the volume of about 1400 centimeter cubed or cubic centimeters. But it's not so much the number of neurons that the unprecedented complexity of the wiring that connects them that give birth to the reflective human consciousness, giving us not just but a unique self-consciousness. Scarcely, yeah. 1 minute. Okay, so scarcely 2000 years later, we have become the living embodiment of the modern human, Homo sapiens. Prehistorians and anthropologists have gathered a wealth of scientific data that our species' lifestyle over time and our progressive occupation of the planet. We came from somewhere and we spread to the whole planet. And gene mutations helped us to adapt to various conditions in the environment. From the moment when our species become mature, in every subsequent generations, the members of our species have the same unchanging genetic equipment that adapts us to a certain way of life, that of a hunter-gatherer. Undeniably, human beings have continued to evolve, particularly in adaptations involving skin color, hair, and other physiological details like lactose tolerance. But the organism has remained essentially the same. After 90,000 years of hunting, gathering, and colonizing the planet, humans started to shift to a sedentary lifestyle. We had discovered animal breeding and farming. And for the last 10,000 years, human beings have existed in a civilized state. Civilization has caused all these problems. I've shared this story not just for your interest, but to help you understand something we tend to forget. It's something that is crucial in order for us to live according to our body's blueprints. So the fact that by nature, humans are hunter-gatherers. By nature. Anywho, we forget this fact. Becoming an adult human in today's world is a very involved process that takes up most of the first 20 years of life. Unfortunately, it generally ends up with our acting against the grain of nature. The aspects of our existence that are based on our physiology and the functioning of our body are stubbornly resistant to change. The body is anchored in our genetic requirements. To illustrate the duality going on, take for example the example of breathing. Throughout the day and even more so at night, you breathe automatically, not even thinking about it. But you also have the power to halt that automatic action and stop breathing. Though it's quite obvious, this is an interesting case because it illustrates the confrontation between nature and culture very clearly. Since it's a matter of our survival, nature responds very quickly when you hurt breathing. You experience suffering. Sooner or later, you give in and nature wins out. You could say the same thing about sleep. It's possible to moderate it, but it will eventually impose its will. This is very interesting because nowadays, I'm glad to be living in this day and era, because nowadays people are emphasizing eating well, exercising, and sleep. That is what will help you moderate your hormones, give you a well-balanced lifestyle, and so forth and so on. But there was a time, like some books I was reading, whereas CEOs and entrepreneurs were doing so much work and barely sleeping, and it had such great repercussions on their life, including heart attacks and aneurysms, like you have a clot in your veins, which causes a burst of vessels in your brain, blood flooding your such an important organ, so you go into shock. Sleeping had lost its importance, but gladly it is coming back, because lack of sleep can actually cause you to be really, really sick. Your body needs to shut down every day for 8 hours. So the same goes for human lifestyle in the midst of hostile environment. One too far removed from the natural model. I'm thinking here is the consumerist framework of our lives, in a framework that is deeply demanding damaging to those who are unable to flourish under it. My own experience of treating my own experience of treating overweight persons has allowed me to understand and observe the unhappiness that is generated by estrangement from natural satisfactions. This estrangement and the resulting suffering can be tolerated like holding your breath, but as always, nature takes its course sooner or later and demands compensation. In my area of study, this compensation manifests itself in the compulsion to eat. Like, and I think it's true. When you're overweight, you always feel the need to eat, even when you're like, you somehow know your body does not need any more sugar, but you still eat, especially things that are high in sugar. And the more you do it, the more your body keeps thinking that it needs the sugar, so the more you eat. It's a cycle. I told you, it's a closed loop. It's a very devastating position to be in. So for that reason, I'm opposed to the view of certain psychologists to advocate a balanced diet. After all, you wouldn't suggest to someone who is drowning that they should breathe in a calm, balanced way. Our world is so hectic, so demanding, that we aren't always aware of the immense changes it has undergone during the last half century. One of the changes I'm most familiar with is diet. The agri-food industry and food distribution has revolutionized our food supplies. It offers a wider variety of products, but also products that are more seductive, gratifying, and addictive. But our digestive system, our absorption process, and our metabolism have remained the same as they have when humans came in being. It is this confrontation between our stable nature and a radical evolving culture that over the last 50 years has resulted in an outbreak of lifestyle diseases. First and foremost, obesity, the grouping of excess weight, obesity, and diabetes. It's like a 3-in-1, a trilogy. These diseases are related to the abundance of food, but it's not so much the overall quantity of the food that is to blame. Rather, it's the fault of non-human food products that are so rich in sugars or processed carbohydrates that they surpass the limits of our physiology and have serious impact on our body. Insofar as no health organization has ever succeeded in reducing the consumption of this food, demand is continually increasing and the selection ever expanding. All these sugars form a united attack on a single thing that counters them: the pancreas and the insulin it secretes. To deal with this powerful obligation and to continue protecting the body, the pancreas must be healthy, robust, and well developed. This robustness depends on the conditions at birth and the first developments of this organ. When the pancreas is created and it develops during intrauterine life, it is imperative that it is not disrupted by the excessive presence of invasive carbohydrates. Unfortunately, pregnant women today eat the same foods as the rest of the population eats. It should be the case. This massive influx of sugars does not lead to the robustness the pancreas needs in today's world. Instead, it creates an inherent vulnerability to these sugars, a vulnerability that will only worsen over a lifetime. Still, while the weight and diabetes epidemic is steadily gaining ground, a significant portion of the population is succeeding in escaping it. Their pancreas has avoided that vulnerability. The goal of this book, aside from giving you enough information to convince you that my approach is sound, is to offer you a specific diet plan for the last 6 months of your pregnancy to help you protect the pancreas from of your child and prevent the onset of this vulnerability. And let's stop there. Reading is, I think it requires a lot of it also requires a lot of mental strength, because you read these books and they're challenging your lifestyle. They challenge your lifestyle. They also challenge your practices, like the things we do. They challenge our practices, and they also challenge our beliefs. They challenge our knowledge, attitude, and practices. AEP. But the truth is, sugar is the culprit. It doesn't matter how much we are diverted from that truth because of corporations and organizations that are processing these foods that are high in sugar. But that fact remains that sugar is the culprit, is the one causing the obesity, which is the trilogy of all lifestyle diseases, where you are obese, you have of course excess weight, and you are having diabetes or pre-diabetes. And it's funny how also I'm noting that people are joking with pre-diabetes, like your sugars are high but you still don't take the necessary precautions, because okay, yes, it can be reverted or reversed, but it can only be reverted when you are taking the necessary precautions. Anyway, let's meet tomorrow. We finish chapter 6, and hopefully someone somewhere will come across these streams of videos, and it will impact their life in a big way, and it will help change their lives. We also create the long format videos, not the live stream, the long format videos, and they go live or they go up every week. Look out for this week's video that will hopefully help you understand what it is that you need to do to avoid developing different lifestyle diseases, especially if you have a sedentary lifestyle that involves very little physical activities. Yeah, allow me to read this list, especially for myself as I do this 10-day or 9-day detox. Things to avoid: beer or wine or any form of alcohol, instant potato flakes, peeled boiled potatoes or baked potatoes. Oh, I love those. Fries or chips, gluten-free white bread. Like, how can it be gluten-free and it's white? Pure white flour, white sandwich bread, French bread, cornflakes, corn flour, fast cooking rice or sticky rice, puffed rice or rice cakes, biscuits made with wheat flour, white sugar, which is sucrose, sweets, whether hard or soft, sugary fizzy drinks, sweet sorbets, soft white noodles, and dates and raisins. These are things that have been introduced in the diet over the last 50 years. And it's sad. It's sad. And these are the things we really love, honestly. White rice, white caucus, which is like chapatis or something. There's this semonilla. It's like used for making what you call ugali or pulp. Bread, ice cream, Ketchup has a lot of sugar added to it. Whole white bread, it doesn't matter if it has grains or not. Yeah, anyway, we'll finish this book together. I'm looking at the last chapter. Yeah, it is also encouraging me to keep growing my own food, especially things like snow peas, cocoa beans, rhubarb. I look for rhubarb. I will look for the seeds. I think I will. There's a time I shifted my attention from buying clothes, to buying books. So now I'll shift my attention from buying food stuff, like, just to see. Anyway, this has gone way too long than I had intended, but I've enjoyed today's reading. This is a really nice book. I can't even remember where I bought it. Must have been one of the bookstores. It's a very nice present for someone who is pregnant or planning to get pregnant, or just yourself if you want to educate yourself about food and dietary restrictions and what happens in your body when you eat food. I have so many other books, and one by one we'll tackle them together in the course of this year. So stick around, subscribe if you haven't. See you on our next live stream. Bye bye.